I want to start with a land acknowledgement. It is necessary to honor and acknowledge the land of the people through which these poems have come to be. The Karankawa, Sana, and Atakapa people are the traditional inhabitants of both my home, Lawndale Art Center, and my university's grounds. I would like to recognize these indigenous populations so as to contextualize our current existence and the materials we create upon colonized territories. This poem is called Land Acknowledgement 2, and it comes with an epigraph by Tiffany Thabo King that says, "The endeavor of surviving under conditions of conquest is never clean." This author thinks about Black and Indigenous solidarity, and so I'd like to do that throughout this collection and throughout the rest of my poetry career, and thinking about how we explore universities and explore the lands that we participate in producing material on. Land Acknowledgement 2. All that good gold knows not what we have stoned it into, nor the onyx slated between the brick, but I'd like to think it knows the kind of tenderness only a god could whisper into it. And not to make a mountain from a myth, but from the ground came the being only after the breath, and both the being and the ground inhaled a life thereafter. What could be fashioned with this flesh that won't carry the waking days of the dust? It has tasted the pulsing center beneath our feet. It knows our windswept beginnings, recollects a tilling hand, swallowed a flagpole or two. We can mold it into altars, but our destruction will still echo. It is our hauntings haunting. I don't know what we've made of this ground, but it's nothing we have a name for. And a myth must be the residue of a history interrupted. I'd whistle your pulse into the concrete if it offered something of a life thereafter. And I don't know how to love this land without fucking it over, or how to tend to a starving mouth without biting my own hand. But I'd like to think it remembers a righteous breath, or that memory itself could be its own revival, or that an acquiesce means nothing without returning what was taken. And if it means anything at all, I've known cathedrals to crumble under the weight of enough prayers. A whisper I'd ember right back into the earth. Thank you. This next poem is called University Tour Guide. What we call a legacy, I call a roof collapsing a fourth time this year. Silver donors curl above the doors like steel ivy, twisting their way to the handle. Around us, the streets beyond the sidewalk sweep in their age-old moan. We smother it in iron tracks, our metal hum hugging the stone like a sister city. On your left, an excavated tomb with ample outlets. You're right, a stone cheek crumbling at the sight of every colored kid who made their way across the block. At the center of which we are most proud, a fountain where not a single student has drowned themselves. It is drained today, but runs every commencement its gurgling congratulations. Our mascot, anyone? Yes, a rusted demolition glove found beneath our former dining hall. We thank them for their sacrifice, take our moment of silence during their strike and orchestrate a fight song in their honor. We give hurrahs where they're due. We dig a hole into the street and call it staff parking. Our faculty build into their lessons the drone of drilling, the hammering echo of wood and good on them. We know when to praise and why. We cannot afford to keep our best secrets under the floorboards. We drag around our endowment in our pants, whip it out and brag about it. We are the model minority, all modest and make do. Where else is our money going if not to bigger britches? We keep them ironed under the weight of the light rail. Our state schools humble us. We have no need for hedges. We are the starving metropolis you asked for. We're still picking the dropouts from between our teeth. Thanks. A lot of these poems tend to be rants, so if y'all thought poems had a genre, you're wrong. This is called Black Existentialist Trauma. I'm the searing coal in the seminar, twinkle toe head asses sidestepping a hot topic. I'll be the subtle glance out your left eye if it means you see me. Sometimes I backburner my black so bad I'm stuck scrubbing the soot from off my own tongue. Woke is just a term for dragging my drenched body into every subject. I'll spend a whole lesson lecturing the room on how unloving a text was. I haven't learned to talk about blackness without holding a white hand. Praxis is pledging allegiance to every midnight that spares me. Your poem about a sparrow is identity politics. Every week I slam under string lights to remember what it feels like to love the work I do. I just want to write a black poem without the wake of death, but is it honest if another boy and another dies before I reach the end of it? This poem is called A Prayer. Lord God, forgive my distance. I spend my afternoons unlearning my beliefs, so I only catch you in glimpses. Sometimes when I speak, I forget the alabaster of your voice, how it salts like stone in the center of my stomach. I quickly become a temple of conviction and wanted to offer a better home to rest in. Lord God, forgive my apprehension. I'm afraid of my last day, how I'll arise unimpressed with the morning dove's croon, my idol dwelling against the bed frame, scoffing at sunrise with nothing to show for my given life but the makings of my hands. Lord God, forgive my blasphemy. I cannot unsee desire and divine things, a peeling palm leaf, its shuddering slow open, the spirits saunter through a body, a sloshing cup passed and prayed over. Lord God, forgive my honesty. I never knew the weight of worship until I loved a God into someone who wasn't. Lord God, forgive my indulgence. I dare to see myself in your image, to equal our wet and stumbling creations, how I steer their shortcomings in the right direction. I am hardest on the ones closest to perfect. I shape them into gourds and pour what good I can gather between my fingers. Lord God, forgive my arrogance. I too crave my name in the mouth of all others, the O of their lips, a pink and waxing wound. Thank you. And this last poem, I wrote recently for a summit that I'm doing in the next couple of weeks. It's called This City 2020. I have not hugged my hometown in what feels like the years, resting between each month since the shutdown, which still remains a misnomer since our officials chose to keep open the doors, sparing the very lives of those that keep us afloat in the first place. We learned essential meant expendable. Service meant sacrifice. So many of our people surrendered to the selfishness of a government that cares more about cash flow than COVID cases, my clutch city. Clinging to one another like an anchor, brass and bronze arms saving each other from the whitewater's frothing mouth. Houston has never been a stranger to floods, but can't outswim the one it can't see. A shoreline of bodies swept by a hurricane we did not know to prepare for. We rationed our breaths like the leftovers from a stimulus check, hoping they'd hold us over for the months to come. And we look to our leaders, so closed fists they cannot unhand themselves from themselves, even if it kills them. So we look to ourselves, tried to make the most of all this solitude. Knew the longer we spent on our own, the more we learned about the world. Knew the longer we spent with the world, the more we learned about ourselves and how much everything looks like us. How we recognize ourselves in the crack of this glass menagerie, every skyscraper made a mirror. Are we moved by our own likeness? Will we like our reflections in another? And so we looked to each other, through screens and squares, retweets and waves across balconies, birthday Zooms and drive-through surprises, finding the pockets of air amidst the drowning. Bayoued our bodies to stave off the next disaster, saw entire neighborhoods flock to the city center and sing our names back into ourselves. A masked up choir, 60,000 wide, chanting for Black lives, demanding our city be given back to us whole. Be it peaceful or a problem, be it someone or a million, we give our all to these potholed streets, tagged trains and slow rolling swingers just to see it all in full swing again. My scaffold jungle, Powerline metropolis, moon-cut silver dollar drifting off the gulf, how I miss you in my arms. How we've grown weary without each other's touch. How we wait, like waiting water for all this to pass, prepping ourselves for the aftermath, whether we rip it up from the bottom floor or knock it down from the inside out, we build it back for us, now and always. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Edkins Milligan. I'm going to jump right in here in a second, but first just wanted to thank Gulf Coast for putting on this event and for the opportunity to read alongside such powerhouse writers, including Eileen Myles. And thank you to everyone who is viewing from home in these crazy, crazy times. This is a fictional piece inspired by my time waitressing at a Maine lobster restaurant back in the day. It's pretty short, so I think I'll be able to get through the whole thing. Lucky's. In that verging summer between high school and college, I worked at a BYOB lobster restaurant on an inland creek in Kittery, half an hour down from Kennebunk by the Post Road, where the water was brown and shallow enough to get hot. I lived in the next county over, which is enemy territory in a football town like this, so I shouldn't have gotten the job. But graduation had hooked me on the idea of stepping out into the world, and whenever I'd been to Lucky's, the people in the aprons had seemed adult and sexy. So when I went to fill out an application, I made myself wear a skimpy top. I could hardly believe I did it, but it worked. When I talk about Lucky's with people in my life today, people who've never been to Maine, I think they imagine it like the postcards, overlooking one of those stretches of rocky beach with cold silver sand, nubble light on the horizon, untouched by time, always just as sweet and nubbly as ever. But Lucky's wasn't one of those Maine places, and the hard part is explaining how being on a lovely coastline would have ruined its whole vibe. The entirety of the restaurant was a long clapboard pier that sagged over the creek bed, with painted picnic tables on top, and a kitchen, and a cabin by the road where customers placed their orders and a senior waitress plucked flapping bugs out of the tank. Some people came by car, but a lot of locals rode up in canoes, tied their boats to the pilings, and batoned past beer coolers up the ladder. I had a dream a few months back where I was inexplicably back home with a group of women from the office, and I took them to Lucky's for lunch, and it made me so mad the way they said, "You worked here," the way they tried to convince me it must not have been the way I remember it. On the June day I drove to Lucky's to fill out the application, I passed some of the nicer beach restaurants on my way. I checked myself in my rearview mirror at one point, and I worried I might look obvious and fake in my revealing top. A boy had bought it for me once on a weird mall date, and I'd always been too concerned about what that had meant. But picking it out from the back of my closet years later had felt like selecting it for myself. I stood outside on the pier, filling out the forms, and felt the rest of the waitstaff glancing my way. They all looked old enough for college, and I wondered if, or hoped that, they thought the same thing when they looked at me. I alternated between dipping my shoulder to make the spaghetti strap slip and crossing a tentative arm across my chest to hold the strap in place. When I got home, I found my younger sister in the kitchen and told her I got the job. She saw me in my outfit and looked surprised and put a hand on the mesh collar of her own baggy pinny. She sounded resentful or jealous when she said, "You look like a Lucky's girl already." My manager was a guy named Mac. He was the owner's son in his late 30s, as short as my little brother, a jacked-up wheeler type with a cleft lip scar and a hairpin temper who yelled at customers and male waitstaff. His dad fired him every other week, but he was never actually fired. Whenever he got mad or flirty, I'd look down at the top of his head and wonder whether he'd seem dangerous if he were full-sized. I was the new girl in a crew of older kids who'd all gone to the same schools and worked at Lucky's for summers in a row. A few roomed together at Orono and tacked pictures of themselves in their dorms to the walls by the cache. On my first day, Mac told Jay to show me the ropes, so I knew Jay must be an experienced Lucky's server. He wore his waist apron slung low like baggy jeans, and he held the swinging doors open for me. Mac trailed alongside us as Jay toured me through the tent and the shucking station and the back lot where they shoveled the debris of the place into built-in dumpsters. "You have cat eyes," Mac said to me by the trash. "Meow, meow." Jay laughed, rolling his eyes while he walked away, but he glanced back a few steps later and almost ran into a customer. I thought, was that because of me? One of the veteran waitresses standing nearby looked between me and Jay and took a step toward him, and I put a possessive hand on his arm. I realized that was because of me too. For those first few weeks, especially when it was busy, when he knew I was stressed, Mac would purr at me as I hustled past him. It was the kind of thing that would have unnerved me at school. I might have called friends to talk about it or gone home afterwards and said to my sister, "This is what's happening," and she might have said, "Don't tell Mom." But on the Hot Lucky's pier, as a new Lucky's waitress, I felt the purring less like an advance and more like a reaction to some kind of new, wieldable influence. I decided to try testing it, to play with it like a game. I'd flick my lashes at Mac on purpose to confirm, blushingly, that I could make him do the purr. It's easy for people who weren't there to say, "That doesn't sound like a good work environment." I can talk myself into thinking the same thing. But that seems like a false way I'm supposed to remember it now, not the way I actually felt about it then. From the beginning, I saw things at Lucky's clearly. I was aware of myself while I was doing the job, so aware that I was aware of my awareness in real time. Like appreciating the reflection while you move in front of a mirror. I'd think, I'm unfurling the rain curtains, and then I'm thinking about unfurling the rain curtains while I unfurl the rain curtains. I'm thinking about flicking my lashes at this guy while I flick them. I'm recognizing I might like feeling this new way about myself right as the feeling is happening. After K through 12 years with all the same people, I think one big part of it was the novelty of my newness. It began to buoy me up. When the other waitresses hazed me early on in girly ways, telling me fake shift time so I'd almost show up late, or talking in front of me about after-work crew parties I wasn't invited to, I realized I could choose to act like someone who was unintimidated. They'd make me clean the bathrooms, and I'd try to scrub the stalls hard and quick, and hurry back to the head hostess, mop propped tall, hip cocked like anything else. When Jay and the rest of the guys eyed me like boys who knew me when I was 8 never would, I tried eyeing them back. I let them look. The Lucky's uniform was a logo t-shirt and shorts of our own choosing. The shorter the better. I remember coming home from a full day shift in the first few weeks and slogging upstairs and taking a few extra seconds on my feet to study myself in my work outfit while the shower warmed up. It was a roller derby kind of look, tight and mostly limbs, and I'd suck in my kneecaps and watch in the mirror as the sweet meat of my thighs clenched. My lucky summer was when I first started going to the gym. Before that, in my middling high school athlete days, weak attempts at exercise had only ever been about skinnying down. I'd spent years jogging around sports courts, sort of sweating, and then pinching at my skin in front of locker room mirrors with girlfriends. But in the kitchen at work, I watched the other waitresses bragging about their fitness routines and comparing the curves of their hard muscles when they hoisted bags of clams. The confidence with which they showed themselves off, it was revolutionary. I began going to the Y in the mornings before my shifts, using the leg machines and then oiling myself in tanner for my day on the pier. When I spent a day's wages on bigger shorts because my ass had shaped up, I was proud. By late July, I'd catch myself rolling up the hems and bending the long way over a table at work when I wiped it clean, like a car wash girl. I started leaning my weight to one foot while I took orders, enjoying the feeling of one strong muscle shelf sliding over another. One night in early August, I cleared the plates away from a big party at the back of the pier. It was a 12-top, with 3 coolers of Harpoon arrayed down the middle and trays piled high with shells. I was distracted. An old high school boyfriend had showed up at Lucky's earlier that day with some kids from his track team. I'd watched him and his buddies walk in and place an order with Morgan, a popular waitress with a tongue ring who was just starting to warm up to me, and it had been amazing, the way she'd made them all look small and out of place by comparison. She held a pair of baby lobsters toward them, and they jumped back. When the group turned to leave the order line, the old boyfriend saw me and waved, and I watched Morgan look from him to me and raise her eyebrows when she understood we knew each other. I'd gone to fold napkins with Jay, and I'd been able to see the boyfriend watching, frowning, when Jay towel whipped a flirty napkin against my waist. He'd called me over to talk, and after a few minutes he pointed at the cartoon lobster on my uniform shirt and said, "Those claws are strategically placed." He and his buddies had laughed, and it was disorienting, being embarrassed by and for someone I used to pray would call my phone. I told him I should be getting back. The customers at the 12-top were in their 20s, friends, playing some kind of casual drinking game. At the head of the table was a blonde guy with a mischievous surfer face. While I cleared his tray, I tried to look confident. I bent across him in my shorts and smiled. I asked him how everything had been. Food's great, service great, he said. Drunkenly, he added, and look at you. And then, with his friends watching, he pulled a folded back pack of bills from his pocket and lifted it up to my bare leg. He grinned and tickled the paper slow across my thigh, then slotted it up under the rolled hem of my short shorts. The denim was tight, so the money held there against my new muscles like a scale on a fish. A tip, the guy said, giggling and bouncing his eyebrows. His friend said, Jesus, Ollie, and leave the poor girl alone, Ollie. I just smiled and left with his tray, the money still in my shorts, its folded corners poking my skin while I walked. The radio sang loudly in the kitchen, Kid Rocks all summer long. Jay stood at the roll station with Morgan, and Mac sat behind them on a stool at the cash, picking at his nails. I walked over to them, set the tray on the counter, and tugged the wad of bills out from underneath the fabric on my leg. $100. Cute little friends of yours earlier, Morgan said, but in a laughing with you kind of way. I held the money up and said, loud enough for Jay and Mac and Morgan all to hear, this guy just stuck a tip up my shorts like at a strip club. My voice wasn't mad, it was incredulous, tentative, like, can you believe this is a thing that happens? Or how exactly should I feel? Mac waggled his eyebrows like Ollie had done, and he purred. Jay frowned and started to ask me to explain, but Morgan interrupted him. She said, they do that sometimes, as if it had also happened to her. But something about the way she had sounded had shifted. It felt like she was overworking to imply her usual confidence. I raised my eyebrows at her, the way she'd done when my old boyfriend waved. Jay made a joke of pushing up his t-shirt sleeves and said, well, don't you ladies worry. Morgan laughed and I rolled the bills in my fingers. It was a muggy night, and I spent the closing half hour of my shift wiping down the steamed-up kitchen windows so I could look out at the pier, at Ollie at the 12-top table. The way he kept waving his arms around, knocking over empties, I wondered if he was too drunk to even remember what he'd done. When his group got up to leave, I went out the kitchen from the door by the road entrance and bumped into him, in a way that could have been an accident. He turned, and I pulled the $100 out of my pocket, holding the bills up between two fingers. I tilted them toward his face like I was about to return them, then I took them back for myself. I said, smiling, thanks. One of his friends said, you're bothering that girl again, and I told her no. I said, it was me. Summer holidays were our biggest nights, and on Labor Day, for one of our busiest hours, Mac let me man the cabin where customers picked out their lobsters. It was the sitting down, face of the restaurant station that everyone wanted because it meant, for that shift at least, you were more important than everyone bussing tables and clearing shells out on the pier. My parting gift, Mac said. Don't fuck it up. I sat on a stool behind a booth with an order pad and a wet scale, and the winding queue of customers stepped up one by one, making their requests. They'd say, £1.50, please, or £1.25, parodying the accent. I'd go over to the corresponding tank and plunge my hand into the water, grabbing one of the chicks by its round back. When I pulled it out into the open air, it would buck in my hand, flailing its banded claws. I'd hold it up to make the silly girls in line squeal. I'd place it on the bed of the scale and watch it scratch against the metal. A few times, if the customer seemed interested enough, I said, if you want, I can show you if it's male or female. And then I flipped the lobster on its back and pried its tail open, holding it still in my hand and petting its first row of feelers. If they were feathery, girl. Bony and opaque, a boy. Between groups, I'd wipe the salt water off my hands and onto the butt of my shorts. After an hour, Morgan tapped me out and said, good job. I was 10 feet tall. The next day, a Tuesday, was a hot calm after the storm. I was headed off to college in 5 days, but the future felt as far away as high school felt finished. The sunlight flashed off the squeaky clean tables. The water below the pier streamed past the pilings, canoeless. A few customers popped in for crab rolls around noon, but then, for hours between lunch and dinner, the restaurant stood completely, resoundingly empty. The others told me this happened occasionally, once or twice a year after big nights, but for me, it was the first time. The owner had left for the day and put Mac in charge. Mac passed out styrofoam cups of wine-slap Franzia, and all 7 of us, a small shift, untied our waist aprons and lined ourselves along the fence of the pier, holding our drinks over the belly of the moving creek, baking in the sun. The overgrown, undeveloped bank across from Lucky's had only tall lady ferns and sand, so it was just us and empty tables and lobsters walking in their tanks. I stood next to Morgan by the edge of the pier. She wiped her sweaty forehead and we looked out at the water, and I said, right when it occurred to me, because it was hot, what if we went swimming? She stared into her wine for a moment, and I briefly expected her to tell me to refill her cup. But then she smiled a slow, impressed smile, and I understood. Hey, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, let's go swimming. Max smirked and said, don't let me stop you. The boys stripped down to their boxers. We girls scavenged sports bras from the gym bags in our cars, and we changed behind the plastic room divider that wrapped around the outside bathroom door, peeking between the slats to confirm the guys were watching. We cannonballed off the boards like kids, but we landed on the squeegee creek bottom and emerged laughing, grabbing for our wine back on shore. The tide came up to my nipples and ombre-ed the fabric on my chest. Matt picked up a decorative buoy and threw it as hard as he could across the water. Swim, I'm paying you to swim. Morgan and the rest of them raced off after it, but Jay and I hung back by the dock. Above the surface, Jay was naked. He looked at me bobbing in the tug of the water, and I was aware of the expanse of my own wet skin. Despite the experience of a few fumbling afternoons with those high school guys, a few months earlier I might have believed the sexy thing was to pretend I didn't know what I wanted. I might have made myself wait for him to come to me. Mac whistled at us from the shore. Swim, he yelled. It was your idea to swim. A half hour or so later, we pulled ourselves out of the creek and toweled off with clean aprons and put our uniforms back on and topped off the franze in our cups, and I showed a couple other girls how to French braid their wet side bangs back to keep them from drying curly in their face. By the time the first dinner customers showed up, we were pretty drunk and mostly dry, and a few days later I was gone. But while we were still swimming, I kicked back over to Jay with my new gym legs and hooked his boxer with my pointer finger. I kissed him, hard. On the shore, Mac catcalled, saying meow, meow, and I pulled Jay even closer, and I felt him go stiff against the muscle of my hip. I wrapped my fingers around him under the water. I knew I could make him do anything I wanted. And since then, there have been these crushing days when I've tried to summon that powerful feeling. Hold it like that first dick in my hand. Thank you.
Before I start, I'd like to thank Gulf Coast for asking me to be a part of this, and Eileen Myles for being so rad. This first poem takes its title from the first line. I do not know how to write pretty poems. I do not know how to write pretty poems about being an addict. I keep trying, but the moon won't show, and holy colors refuse their help. It is all puke and blah, sad mom, sad me and blah, blah and drunk sex, blah and the details are stark and dark and failures, stuff my mother's nightmares are made of. The details are let me make this busted Forever 21 dress into a lifestyle, or a garden tub and submerged sleep, the panic when waking and the disappointment at breath, or Cracker Barrel bathroom bukes, bile on black leather, bile on porcelain, bile in a solo cup. Or this dick and that dick, and who's on first and who gave me chlamydia, who's who when I'm so tanked all the faces are highway blurs. Sometimes the details are contained. The Granville County drunk tank, my teeth in a Coke mirror, hands down pants, apologies in a text. And sometimes the details are not, or regrets that weigh forever. The last night I ever drank, it was with a man I hated in an outfit begging for something softer than my own timed bones. I swallowed a rusty drink in a VIP loft. I swizzled my dumb tongue down his numb throat. I knew when I hit the brick, stumbling to my truck, cocksure I'd get home safe and on my own, that I wouldn't. I am not smarter or more clever than a high. I don't believe I am lovely, but I am tender and trying, and at my worst, I am drunk. Hey, Hannah, take my body. When you cried and died, I figured, okay, I will take your dog and your hooker hoops and your mother on my shoulder, your father on my resume. What a sad show of reverie. What a bunch of love. I was thinking your rose gold nameplate. I was thinking your canine charity clutch. I was thinking your stonemason boyfriend and his bookend jaw, his toad hands. When my other friends died, I got all their things. Silver serpent, cat eyes, high leather pumps. But you aren't really dead, just looking like it. You wept a bitch's worth of salt in those suicidal months, and though you did not all the way die, something sunk in your heart and festered there, so I gave you my own blood box for starters. Your eyes were so pugged, something had to be done. Your eyes were so beat, so tucked tight, so freshly fucked. Okay, Hannah, here are my windows. They are green like infection and bright like money. My hands were next because you needed to help yourself. Then armpits because you envied my fuzz. Adios, ditch pits. Take care of my knees. They lock on their own. Notice my moonbed nails, my strawberry stress spots, the flop in my mouth. Okay, you can take these tiny tits. Okay, you can take this phone voice. Okay, you can take my picture skin show. Okay, you can take the cake. Do not misplace my long neck. You can use it to swallow or be a bird forever. Do not forget to pill all the pills. Do not forget to breathe breath. It is only life, you sick bitch. It is only a taut flesh temple fraught with trying. You cry and cry, but I know you are living quiet inside like a mother at mass, like a new baby first yell, like a building squawk. Hannah, I only want you alive on arrival. Hannah, I only want your loudest sound. Body surge. When 12, I fainted at Camp Kanata. Everything went tunnel then echo, and I looked desperately to my best friend then, who is still my best friend now, whose breasts came barreling out of her body, and so she mothered me, who was there when I mouthed, Lil, I can't see you, as my eyes went all poltergeist TV screens, snow wash white out. I choked on a single ice cube the next day, and Lil ran for a counselor like Paul Revere shouting, she can't breathe, she's sensitive in her body, and I am. Counselors came, and I was blue, and my throat was total tea frozen, and we all only had to wait for the cube to melt. The human body can go a full 5 minutes without oxygen, although cold decreases that endurance by half. But because it was only in my hot throat and the cube was melted by lunch, I was fine, but still ridiculous. In Southeast Georgia, a friend got married and I wore yellow and no hair, not even a hint. And the river was cold like my last lover and begged for attention, the same too. Guests racked their brains for who I even was, but I was Adele, all homely and homeless. There was a swimming hole at the ceremony built like a coffin, standing upright, only one body at a time. I went in last and I went night-night. MJ pulled me free, and the funny thing wasn't how my body loved to freeze enough to quit, but all the bezeled hives covering my softest parts, so I was decorated fancier than when I arrived. At the beach once in the sand and sun, I went for a run barefoot in a ragged skirt and lame top. It wasn't but a mile until my face was a pink puffy nightmare, a beat up bottom hole, and two angel brothers with diamond eyes found me knocked out on the shore. The doctor asked about allergies, but the test to know all the things that can kill you costs too much to ever know. When I was a little girl, I would itch my eyes into wounds, and my mother soaked warm rags for the pain. It was so ordinary. I would do everything an 8-year-old does like normal, but just with rags on my eyes. Hide and seek with rags, so I hid. Paper dolls with rags, so soggy dresses. Clown blue cupcakes with rags, so blue rags. Everyone has a weakness bucket in their body, and mine is brimming. I know more now than I ever have. Nightshade raises flags, and whatever a cat is made of isn't safe. The bucket is one way I am woundable. I can also only see myself as the worst woman I have ever been, but I have a book for that. There is nothing for the bucket but balance, and I'm so far down this rickety road, I got no clue how to get home. Violence. I have already said gun 3 times today like this. Gun, gun, gun. I wrote an essay on it just this week, on the saying of gun and things of pain. The essay talks about a gun dance between my boyfriend and a gang kid. It talks about my no teeth. I had no front teeth until I was 18. I didn't kiss a boy until then either, because of the no teeth. And it was a slippery slope down to fucking. The essay also talks about my uncle who overdosed while I was in rehab, but it doesn't say enough because I don't know enough. I just know that my mom had tucked me into rehab like a fever dream, and only a few days later, she tucked her brother into something darker and forever. She called and told me he was dead. She said dead, like dead, 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 but it was quieter than that. The essay too talks about my dog, who was falling to pieces. Teeth, tags, and toes, all not right and so thin so they break or tear like an orange. She is only a dog, but she knows my soul. In the essay, I forgot to talk about my Nana and how whenever we flew her out of New Orleans, she had no airport etiquette. She putzed around and joked bomb, bomb, bomb and wouldn't stay seated. I forgot to tell about when I shot a musket at a pumpkin, or when I took a hard fist hit and got 2 black eyes together all at once. Or when Laura shot herself in the face in the school bathroom during lunch, and I was at my locker, and I heard the crack and I went to the bathroom, and I opened the door, and everything was red, red, red. This is the last poem I'm going to read. It's called Playing the Field. I did not know my strengths until my 20s, and those strengths weren't even my real ones. They got me paid, they got me sad. It was a woolly bar, it was a shit team, it was a small shitty pond. I was a big flashy fish. I was so cool you don't even know. I was a real fun time. I had skunk streaks in my hair above my ears. I had a gram of anything in my pocket. I had some money and jokes. I was hysterical, and everybody wanted to throw me a surprise party all the time. At 22, I found out I could smile for money. I could drink for money. I could blank for money. It was my show. Baby, you're invited to the premiere, but you cannot touch my trophy. You cannot hold my satin train. In that factory town, all they wanted was a pretty girl with visible scarring, an eager tender to trade, to bet on, and I was the best bet. When I was a little kid, I stuck to what I knew best. Paper keeping, organization, folders, binder clips, highlighting. I played secretary, I played teacher, alone, nonstop in the crawl space in the playroom. Give me a project, a task, a student, a pile of papers, a lot of words. Give me a loose laundry list to control. Give me distraction, a decoy duck. Do not give me a six-pack, a dark night, a bad man with black eyes and slick hair. Do not give me a high jump, a stiff board, a soft body of noir water, a sticky baggie, a soft, soft body. Do not give me a never been done, a too dangerous. Do not even try to give me a sweet name, Lucy, Mommy, Bunny, Pumpkin. They call it risk-seeking behavior. I call it easy-peasy lemon squeezy. When I was 12, I played on my first softball team. Now please know that this was not my first sport. I had already failed basketball, gymnastics, and dance. I will never forget when I started gymnastics, Mom said, I need you to stick with this. I've paid for the month, and it is your father's poker savings. The first day, I could not even roll. I could not put my big dumb head between my legs and roll. I begged Mom to never go back. I cried like every other quit, embarrassed and ashamed. The girls on the softball team were giants, were women. Surely there had been a mistake. Why me? Whenever something went hysterically wrong, Mom used to say, God is punishing you. It was supposed to be a joke, but God punished me all the time. All the girls were R-crumb women, the thickets of hair on their heads and their legs, the thickest legs on young teens I had ever seen. They cranked the ball like a mower. I never hit a hit. I never caught a fly. It was my most absurd failure yet. Dad said, "You'd be the star of a shit team," and it did not take me forever to learn the top value of a shitty heat, the big flashy fish, the brightest, trashiest star. I traded my tasks and agendas for tits and ass, for a train town and a dark bar for men with whiskey holes and wet wild eyes. You know what is funny? How long it takes you to know yourself. You know what is funny? How losing as a kid makes you so determined as an adult, even if it is for all the wrong goals, even if they aren't goals but drinks and drugs. If there was a winner chicken dinner of drinks and drugs, I won. If there was a slick girl with a thick wet throat, I won. My shit team made it all possible. I would like to thank God for my punishment and my shit team. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Eileen Myles and I'm reading tonight for Gulf Coast. I am very happy to be here. I am here in my New York apartment. I have nothing else to say of that order. I'm going to start reading the Gulf Coast poems, which I just want to impress you with the fact that I've used an apple core for a bookmark. Poems are a little wet. Okay, here goes. I'm going to Gulf Coast to my poems. If there's any time left, I'm going to read a little squib from my new book for now. If not, you've seen it. Love you guys, and the issue looks great. This is called Reed, and it was secretly for Justin Reed, who I just met and who was 2 seconds before winning the National Book Award. Skiers miss the snow, and scientists notice that what they're studying is gone. Study gone. Carolyn says the mountains will be out, and Justin said I was funny. I push the Christmassy door. When I run out of my poem, I will write the poem you gave me. Enough poems, enough dogs. Making is just taking if you know. New. Do. This one's called Notes. The road strikes on moving water. Mike knows. Mountain right at the end of this street. It was a lease, but I began to have a relationship with this car. Did you indeed dance under a tree with goats in the dark? That one's a little gnomic. December 16th. Driving through Tornillo, and I feel all the children we can't see in his America. He is the pronoun of the government, stand in for human, have that a lot. Line of mountains, light, no longer trembles, nor does sound procession of one digit. Kids, all born on January 1, be our king, our claws, let the mountains fold in. In hospice performances, give this. Chicken tenders can't be the only food you've got. In the future, take two. One blinking light as the static surrounds. We will take to the mountains with the puppets tomorrow, hiding, exploding. On our journey, being cute, months snuffed without mother. Classical guitar live is nonprofit. How hard was it to give the kids some water? Classical guitar live, listen online anytime. Again. This politician hand I keep doing. Sorry. I'm just doing everything all over again, drinking coffee and being alone, holding my pitcher's gong. She goes as the water boils, forces shushing, coming to a close. Too fast this winter sings, holds me fast, tuts. This winter's sweet, enveloping or no. There she is, something dark at last. Thank you, guys. And now, just to get presenter, this one's called Cool and Bright. I stand up as I do in my poet's shack and piss, the toilet's black. An orange moth does its last couple of flaps, flap, flap, piss to death. It could be no worse. You flew. Lung song. No. Actually, these poems, they're printed. Usually I'm very organized about the order of the reading. I mean, often. But these poems, I just made a file of so anyway, the procession is random. Love song. The sky hates me. I must be calm. I must be calm. If I have any chance of goodness at all, a child in a snowstorm. A man faces death slow. A gibbet is hanging. I don't know what that is. For a few dollars, I can save a horse. A deer must hide. My dog is far away. Your dog, a joker, is close. A man travels with a wolf, and that is Victor Hugo. His inkiness is pure translation, perhaps. I have charm in my native language. Shelves pushed up, against each other to jam the door. Flinging it open, I am terribly in love with you. I cite your gifts. I suggest I am best without you, and yet this yellow wind I saw the day you were there, and I never felt such desire. I say, I am in decline. How could you possibly want this? Alone, I'm strong. Alone, I'm a muffin. I offer you a piece of my charm and relinquish my attachment to being a hermit. In an old wooden house, I am kindly to your child. He is ours. This one's called May 8th -9th. In the morning, a dog hangs outside. Birds make all those sweet sounds. My back in action since 1949 aches. What world? I just wanted to write that. They are hovering, singing, making the day. On my whiteboard it says, radio. A collection of shoes from many moments. Yes, Saturday and the day before surround my ankles. And the cold from outside surrounding my ankles too. It's 55, my phone says. I guess I'll close the door. The thing that's different from the poem I wrote 42 years ago is I think of myself as a gatherer now. Maybe the words are the birds. I have a dog. I call my dog a stoned whoop. She stands at the door. I heard her going whoop. I opened it and looked at her standing there. She goes, what? That's the stoned part. The dove's song is graceful, layered. Hey, that's maybe where poetry came from. And the others barge in. Some constant tweeting. Another, a confirming click, an agreeing rattle, a sweet cheep. The array makes me shake my head. It continues around the clock, repairing. Group song then. My dog barks. Low grounded thing, they think. This is called Monday Shit. I don't know if I'm knowing something or falling apart. I put my 2 feet together. It's Monday. Put the water on. I was dropping a man off, a dark-haired friend. I was parked in the middle of the plaza. I can't stay here. I went inside a little. I've got to go, and I went up over the lumpy hills. That store where the women worked, my friends, an old guitar store, everything's different now because of the pandemic. I want to go to that, I think. Can I put my bike behind the counter or up there? No, because we're moving. I see plenty of room. Next, I'm all involved with them, the children, and they're playing outside. I'm in the apartment somehow, and everyone's gone like I woke. I could have put my bicycle anywhere. It's morning. I called the children like it's morning. Where did this shit come from? And I found the morning coffee. And this is a miracle. I just called them and they came in like dogs. I dreamed this world. That's it. Does it work this way? Working? Dreaming? Having a life, making and dying, why did I die? To dream this? And everyone knows me or something, somewhere or some while. I know you once in a while. I truly forgot about him. I didn't know he was going to do that. Everybody's not in a dream but me, or we find each other here. I didn't know their fucking names, but I found their children. Was this first? I'm waking here. It's perfect. Everything. Coffee's like music. I thought about quitting it in the future for the better orgasms. I read that. I did it once in the 80s. We were camping and shit, and whoa, waking from that dream into this, but my cave, my hovel. Now afraid to put it in a suitcase. Will my dreaming come? The feeling of flowing with you, but you have 7 stories and I have 3. One flooded with a baby. Do I know this? All I know is this. Kid. I'm just thinking about what you're getting into as I'm making my day. How did it end this time? Feeding the yellow dog. I was looking for a parking place, and it was my dike, your children, and I don't know your names. Is this the story that holds the future, or is this the day? Marvelous. Pouring some of this over there. I think it's perfect in me, this prophecy. Right now it holds. This one's called The Sacrament and the Train's Coming. Today, different from yesterday, there still is that slight breeze. Maya is the special agent in charge at casinos on Get-Go and not the owner of Ozark, who did not respond to my letter. Peeing around the dumpster, peculiar slime and cat trap, a cup of time we get to give as an amend to somebody else. Not burning in this morning sun today. I'm starving. This one's called We. And a part of the beauty of the pandemic, I wrote this during a 7-hour Bellatar film that Lincoln Center was streaming. Because my Wi-Fi kept breaking up. But it was such a space, this long movie, that I could write poems inside of it. We'll feed you until we kill you, but if we leave, we won't feed you. Light in the rain and the rain's pulsing. 4 dark little steps. Could that be a poodle? A dirty old poodle that's hungry? That poodle could be young, since hunger is a great equalizer. I had faith and confidence, and here we are. As a child, I was inclined to masturbation and nose-picking. The movie's so slow. When they sleep, I want to sleep. So I don't get to bark? No, you don't. The new life, half the day eating, half the day exercising, their dogs, their old roommate. This big country, his big country bottle is woven. The ordeal of life, funnels. We must see his Macbeth. What remains is a half hour, and it's going to be a half hour in so many ways. Okay, this one is called Painting is the Sky. This one's funny because I wrote it and then I thought, oh, it ends here. And then later I thought, no, it ends there. So I'm going to stop at the kind of more formal ending, and then I'm going to give you the codicil. So you can email me, Eileen Myles @gmail, and just let me know which ending you prefer. Painting is the sky. That's not a new thought. And every single thing you built is a perch. 6 black crow and 1 tiny bird on a wire says whatever. We own the sky and half of us. Cat our blackness over there, the orange and pink and yellow where the road ends and it doesn't end. Mountains fill the view and disappear when night falls. What's that word about gathering the future? It means this. The dog's revenge is when I'm done. She's sniffing something and chewing hard, and the cars breathe. Jesus dumpsters, nothing's left. Where's you? I think the second ending is better. This one's called Pour Exemple. I will sleep on the ground with the wagon train. No, I will not. I will make home. Gentle sucking of the faucet and the wind outside. Kind of a haiku. Yeah, this is it one? I guess it's one. I was commissioned, I was asked to write something for a catalog in Vienna for like a film festival for the filmmaker Kelly Reichardt, who we're friends. I love Kelly and I love her work so much. So I decided I should write a poem. It's called 200 Years for Kelly. The plot walks by a splashing bucket in the hands of a small girl. Animals wander. Naturally, dog forages. History isn't here yet. The subject is their comfort and their needs, smoothing crumbs. Temperature is dialogue. Hello, how are you? Didn't expect company this late. Here we are. You got a nice place here. Sorry about your husband and your calf. It's a terrible thing. Picking and snacking. Sound is the storyteller. Useless people, interesting, petting a bird. Oily cake. My warped pen. A dog is watching. A man watches. Nothing to do. Pull down a little house. Roses and sticks. This is a movie. The broken house, is it old or new? The green wet water, always new. Cow got a little fence, like a unicorn, and quietly go to sleep, to be the target flash of light outside as I'm watching this our nation's miracle. The end. I wanted that to be apocalyptic. Okay, I have about 4 minutes, so I'm going to read a teeny bit of the book I plugged for now. I'm just going to charge in. It's part of the series called Why I Write, which was really a problem, and I had to unload it throughout the book, and then I would approach it. If you ask me to tell you why I write, it probably has to do with this deep comfort of being in the world and this option of devotion. If I want to sit here and copy all day, that might be the best option available to me. It's not an antidepressant, and it's not exhilarating, and it's not aerobic, but it is a form of chanting, and I do it for religious reasons. I mean, it's my default position. What I think about a lot is how when I was young, I don't remember feeling at all, but I have these pictures like the one of drawing the tree. So what's not gross, for example, is to copy an experience you can easily summon up from memory, putting in the feeling, perhaps. And then as the tape winds down, you might pop in a bit of contemporary material that you can copy right in front of you. It kind of makes a bump, like the first time I heard guitar frets on a recording, or the first time somebody laughed casual in the recording studio, Dylan or Bobby Darin, men I loved who sang, and then they sang the present as well. They gave you this little bit of stuff. I was thrilled by the naked admission of these two things next to each other, and if I love a thing, eventually I will use it. I will slip it in when it singles the experience of presence, even if it's the present at the front of my mind. The experience of standing here is extremely weird in that I was asked to come in 2018, and a year passed, and there was a vague thought of this moment, all of that time, and eventually the one thought, which was that I had the wrong year, and then sitting in Texas trying to create a script for this moment, in a house with a dog in particular weather, and then looking at it in New York and saying, nah, but enjoying, say, the artificial, here's an indication that I carry the apartment I'm sitting in now, then, in my head. I have been in hell lately about my apartment. Keep going. It is the repository of now, but it is a sick little Eileen museum. Where's the goddamn plaque? It's a small space with a thick feel. I think it's a hot space. I think you can have sex in it. There's a dirty public-private feeling to it all. It's been used and used and used by me and before me. I think I've been taking photographs of it since 2018 because I know that I'm leaving. You've got to go. I don't mean legally, but that part gets confused. What do we own? Obviously, I was going to fight the motherfuckers. How dare they think they can get rid of me, the most famous poet in the East Village, at this moment, a neighborhood of many moments. Now this. I want a plaque, and this is that. The floors of my apartment are nice old wood. There's a tree outside the window, and in summer its shaking green leafiness acted like a curtain that softened the hungover mornings and allowed the darts of light in the later afternoon to illuminate my place. Sometimes in the afternoon, friends would come by and we'd drink red drinks, hot ones. By the fall, the leaves were down, and I began to think of my apartment as blue. It's warmer now, everything having gone around twice. Chris used to live here for a couple of years. There's a character now called Eileen's apartment, and perhaps she remembers everything I don't. I think that's it, guys. Yeah, that's 20 minutes and 9 seconds, and it keeps growing. Thank you so much, Gulf Coast. I love you. Have a good day and a night, everybody.